Hi everyone, this is Emily Bartolone coming to you from my home studio in Massillon, Ohio, about to answer some questions about my practice with Galleri Urbane. My painting practice really stems and starts from my love of the formal qualities of painting, like shape and color theory and texture. More recently, I've also been thinking about just the experiences and relationships we build as humans kind of moving throughout this earth. And I think that combined with the formal elements of painting really boils down to make works that seem simple at first glance, but can be broken down into these real specific and subtle relationships between textures and opacity and colors kind of fighting with one another or bouncing off one another, and shapes being compressed by one another or supporting each other. And I think it gives viewers a chance to find themselves in those relationships. The process of seeing, to me, really kind of represents that culmination of the end result of painting and what the viewer then gets out of the work and is able to take from the work. Because my works are a little bit more simple, I try to take extra time when thinking about their construction to make them a little bit harder to figure out. So when viewers actually do go through that full process of seeing and they're taking time to look and analyze a piece, they get rewarded for that. And that kind of comes from a few different methods of thinking. One is the order in which I paint the shapes on the canvas. I try to do it in a bit of an unexpected way so that they are a little bit trickier to figure out. They take a little bit longer to decipher in the process of seeing. And so often they're not just painted as they appear. I'm actually kind of working backwards, painting almost from front to back instead of, as you'd expect, from back to front. Another way I try to kind of subvert that simplicity of seeing is by thinking about my color pairings, trying to choose color pairings that kind of have an optical effect on our eyes, and it makes them a little bit trickier just to simply take in. I think these things combined can make a painting more interesting simply by making it harder to figure out, but also kind of rewarding the viewer who stays around to try to figure it out for themselves.
Hi, my name is Saskia Fleishman, and I'm a landscape painter and ceramicist based in Philadelphia. In my work, I constantly ask myself the question of what I am seeing and how we perceive the world around us. I allow the viewer to contemplate this question too, with the juxtaposition of see-through chiffon cutouts, photo transfers, and sand mixture with acrylic paint.
Hi everyone, this is Melinda Laszczynski, and I'm coming to you from my studio in Houston, Texas at the Art Square Studios on Alameda to talk to you a little bit about my practice and my upcoming work with Galleri Urbane. My practice is pretty painting based, but I use a lot of different materials in my work. My training in school was very kind of classical, using oil painting and learning about different mediums, making our own gesso, that kind of thing, combined with really conceptual grounding and thinking about that use of materials and the content that materials can create. So in my own work, I use a lot of different materials, some of which are found and some of which are more traditionally associated with art making, like acrylics, oil paints, inks. As far as materials that are found, I like to use a lot of things from dollar stores, from hardware stores, things that might be associated with more everyday life, and kind of combine those together in a really layered, complex way. So my work tends to take a lot of time just based on the amount of drying that paint can take, kind of looking at it, making sure, does it feel finished? Sometimes I continue onto the sides as well, so that adds additional time in the process. And I also work with ceramics and digital work as well, such as digital drawing and video. And all of that really filters into my practice in general and how I think about layering and creating the next piece. So to me, the process of seeing has a lot to do with things outside of just visual perception. To me, I think a lot about how we experience space, how we're experiencing the space between things, the edges between things, whether that's the front of a painting or an object and the side of it. It's also about what we as a viewer bring to the work, whether that's feelings or associations that we might have with that piece that's going to affect how we are processing it, processing the information of the content or color or texture, surface of the work. In my own practice, the process of seeing has a lot to do with touch, actually, which seems kind of, like it shouldn't have to do with seeing, but for me, seeing has a lot to do with touch and how we experience the world. So when I'm making my work and when I'm kind of thinking about it in terms of perception, I'm thinking not only about that kind of initial reaction or that surface that we see, but also as we move closer to the work, what are we seeing sort of around the sides of the piece? Are we seeing any sculptural elements in my own work? I use a lot of layering techniques. I use a lot of different materials that respond to light as you move around the work, as well as really experimenting with that surface texture. Like in the piece behind me right here, I was physically lifting one layer, tearing it up to build a new layer so that the underneath is revealed. So that piece, I think, has a lot to do with seeing in sort of stages. What's underneath? What do we see on top? What can we see in between? As we move around, we get these sort of shifts of holographic material that catches the light in a really subtle way compared to this really physical sort of mountainous structure on top. So when I think about the process of seeing, I'm thinking about really all of those things together forming the content of the work.